Holla if you hear me, aka Patters. It's Saturday, and I just bumped another episode. Usually on Saturdays, I like my episodes to drop at around 9 o'clock. I bumped it because, in the spirit of Saturday Showcase, I'd like to bring you guys like what I've been going through, like within the week, leading into the weekend. I believe in regular reading material, just when it comes to developing a good scope and perspective of the American comic book industry. You know, we have a lot of Superman on our mind. We have a lot of Fantastic Four on our mind. Two huge movie drops in July, a couple weeks out. And I'm not seeing a lot of people talking about what to read and what the reading order should be and why and this and that. Like nobody. Rex, Devil Momentum, you guys know him. He showed, excuse me, he showed these on his show. And I didn't say anything at the time. I just took a note that they were like Chronicles, right? So DC Chronicles. And it kind of blew my mind. When I looked them up, I found out that there's essentially 11 volumes of this, 11 volumes of Batman. There's also Flash, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman. No Captain Marvel or Shazam or Justice Society. I think that would develop a complete perspective. And here, I got a deal on volumes 4, 5, 6, and 7. And there's a couple things of note here. One of them is we're dealing with pre-crisis. Now, I got a little bit of a Twitter back and forth Twitter war earlier this week, and I found out that a lot of the participants in that Twitter war didn't even know what pre and post DC crisis meant. No idea. So, like, you're discussing things with people or arguing, whatever you want to say, and you're trying to make points. And the points you're making, the recipient just has no clue. So what is pre-crisis Superman? Well, DC, let's just say, we'll just call it DC Comics. DC Comics at the time, they had a multiverse from inception. But they would incorporate other companies' characters into their roster. So the DC universe would grow, and grow. That's what she said. And while it was growing, there was like a lot of contradictions because you have individuals who want to tell stories, and these individuals are humans, and obvious questions come up when we tell a story. Like, how's this character related to that? But this happened over here. Very basic stuff. Believe it or not, a lot of people call that toxic fandom. Right? Asking questions about continuity is toxic nowadays. We push back against that, of course. So going through a disaster, a potential, like, true bankruptcy, like completely going out of business. And at the time, you know, comic book properties really weren't like valued. The top ones were, but not like the entire catalog of a comic book company. Not like today. Even today, like independent comic book publishers, if you have a catalog, it's valuable. But back then, for example, if DC Comics went out of business, you would just get like the top 5 books, and everything else you would just like, who cares? It goes into public domain. Just never renew it, right? But DC saved itself. And coming out of it, if we get into the mid-'80s, they did a book called Crisis of Infinity Earths, which reset all of the time, like the time zones, the timeline. That's the word I'm looking for. Like the timeline gets reset, and they retell all of these stories anew. But there is valuable stuff in pre-crisis Superman. And yeah, I've been flipping through some of these volumes as I've been talking to you, and I'm hoping you picked it up. And we'll stop right here. This is now called the Watchman panel grid. This is called the Watchman grid. This is the Superman grid. This is a Simon and Schuster Superman grid. And why is that important? Because when we have a purposely designed grid system for our storytelling, there's only one avenue, and that's to tell the story. So they're not designing spread pages, splash pages. They're not breaking panel borders. This adds value to the reader. When you read this, you get, a lot of info, but you also feel fulfilled. You also get, here's the wild thing, you get more artwork, right? There's more to draw. And I think the stories move in a very methodical way that I don't see a lot of modern comics mimicking, because the Image era disrupted this practice. By the time we get into the Image era, this practice had to get reformed, which it didn't. People thought the Image era was that reforming. But we just get straight up comic book grids here. Insanely important. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention here is that of these volumes, they're printed on, they're like, it's colored newsprint, right? You guys can hear that, right? It's colored newsprint. I just love the texture of just, reading these. It's not omnibuy, right? It's easily to handle single editions. This is why I hate the omnibuy, the omnibuses, whatever the freak you want to call them. Those insane. Could you imagine if you just wanted to read pre-crisis Superman and really see the origin of the American superhero, that the barrier to entry was a $120 book? No. But the big point though, is that these are insanely affordable. They're cheap. You can get them on eBay, you get them on Amazon, you can get big lots of them. I got these 4 volumes for next to nothing, and they came in, and just in my view, they're of such a high quality. It blew my mind. And here we go too, real quick. We have the 8-panel grid, which I think was a little bit more common for volumes 1 through 4. As you see, they kind of go from 8 panels to 9 panels. And again, these are the things you learn, dare I say, when you read cheap comic books. Now, a lot of people will tell you these are boring, they're unreadable, they're not interesting. I find putting myself as a reader in the time that these came out the best way. Meaning, I transport myself and I sit down and I just say, I need to disconnect from reality. Entertain me for a little bit. I need something goofy. I need something just to make my mind wander. These are not trying to win any awards. They're just trying to stay in business. Right? That's the intent of the story. Again, make a product. You're not making art. You're making a product. The other one more point with these is that they're in chronological order. They say right here, every Superman story in exact chronological order. If you can relatively get the first 10 years of Superman in chronological order for around $100, you do it. And on top of it, you get great reproductions. News. This just feels close to the original printed product. We forget a lot of times too when we see the Action Comics #1 or whatever, and we see that we see it at an auction. The pages are so yellow. The pages are just. This is how they looked when they were first published, which makes this very valuable in my eyes. But just the idea that these are easy to handle. Easy to handle. It's not a giant hardback omnibuy. Guys, you have to get these. Get them if you care about pre-crisis DC history. There's no better comic book creation than this one here. There's not. He's simple and perfect. And that's the Superman formula. Simple and perfect. All right, guys. I love you. Rock and roll.